Johnny Test is a super cool show that takes you on epic adventures with an awesome 11-year-old kid named Johnny Test, his brainiac sisters Susan and Mary, and their talking dog, Dookie. Each episode follows a rad formula where Susan and Mary strike deals with Johnny, using him as their guinea pig for all sorts of crazy experiments. And guess what? Things never go as planned, which adds loads of thrill and belly laughs to the show. The video is divided into two segments, the first one introducing us to the characters, and the second being more of a critique section. So let's dive right in. Firstly, we have the main character, Johnny himself. Johnny is a super curious and adventurous guy. He's always up for trying new things and loves testing out his sister's inventions, even if it means getting into some crazy situations. He is a bit of a troublemaker too, always playing pranks and getting into playful trouble. But hey, he's brave and never backs down from a challenge. When he sets his mind on something, he's determined to make it happen. And let's not forget, he's just plain lovable with his goofy and funny nature. You can't help but laugh at the awkward situations he finds himself in. So yeah, Johnny Test is a curious, mischievous, fearless, determined, and lovable goofball who brings a lot of fun and excitement to the show. Dookie is Johnny's pet dog in the show, and what makes him extra special is that he can actually talk.
And that's not the worst part.
Yep, there's a talking dog in this show. So Dookie is not just any old pet. He's Johnny's best buddy and partner in crime. Dookie has a great sense of humor and is always quick with a witty remark or a clever observation about the crazy situations they find themselves in. Even though he's a dog, he's pretty intelligent and often gives Johnny good advice when he's getting carried away with his adventures. He's kind of like a voice of reason, but he always ends up joining Johnny in his schemes. One of the coolest things about Dookie is his ability to talk. However, he can only chat with Johnny and a few other people, which makes their interactions really funny and sometimes a little bit secretive. Dookie is always by Johnny's side, ready to join him in all his wild and crazy experiments. Whether it's testing out his sister's inventions or going on exciting missions, Dookie is always there to lend a paw and be the best friend a guy could have. Even though he's a dog, Dookie has a lot of human-like qualities. He's loyal, funny, and understands Johnny really well. He adds lots of laugh and companionship and fun to the show, making it even more enjoyable to watch. Now, Johnny Test has two awesome sisters named Susan and Mary who are around 13 and 14 years old respectively. They're super smart and incredibly talented inventors. Susan is the older sister and she's known for her logical thinking and scientific expertise. She's always coming up with brilliant inventions and gadgets to save the day. Mary, on the other hand, is the creative genius of the duo. She has a knack for thinking outside the box and inventing things that are both innovative and imaginative. Together, Susan and Mary make an unstoppable team when it comes to creating cool gadgets and conducting wild experiments. But here's the interesting part. Susan and Mary don't just invent stuff for the fun of it. They often use their creations to help Johnny in his adventures or solve problems. Whether it's inventing a flying skateboard or a time-traveling device, the sisters' inventions always come in handy. Despite their intelligence and scientific prowess, Susan and Mary have distinct personalities. Susan is more serious and focused, always thinking logically and planning ahead. Mary, on the other hand, is more free-spirited and fun-loving, bringing a touch of creativity and spontaneity to their inventions. However, despite their distinct personalities, they have one thing in common: a major crush on a guy named Jill, who makes appearances throughout the show. Their obsession with Jill is so high that sometimes the girls do these ridiculous things to get his attention. In one episode, they turn themselves into babies only to spend time with Jill, who has recently opened a babysitting business. Anyways, these two sisters are always there for Johnny, supporting him in his wild troubles and using their brains to come up with clever solutions to his never-ending problems. Their siblings bond adds a dynamic element to the show and showcases the power of teamwork. So Susan and Mary are not just brainy inventors, but also caring sisters who bring their own unique strengths to the mix. They are an integral part of the Johnny Test universe and contribute to the show's excitement, humor, and problem-solving adventures. Sissy Blakely is a classmate and sometimes a rival of Johnny's. Sissy is known for her confident and competitive nature, often challenging Johnny to various competitions or trying to prove herself as superior. But here's the catch: Sissy has a crush on Johnny. And let's just say Johnny likes her too. Her mean attitude and assertion over Johnny are just a coping mechanism to hide her true feelings. Occasionally, she has shown moments of friendship and even helped Johnny in certain situations. Despite their competitive relationship, there are times when they put aside their differences and work together towards a common goal. In one episode, she even kisses Johnny when he brings her flowers, further expanding on the fact that she likes him a lot. Sissy's character adds an interesting twist to the show as she represents the rival figure for Johnny as well as his potential love interest. Their interactions bring about humorous and exciting competitions, driving the plot forward and adding to the overall entertainment of the series. Next up is Jill Next Door. He is a 15-year-old boy who is the neighbor of the Test family. As I mentioned earlier, Susan and Mary have a huge crush on him, and they try their best to catch his attention whenever he makes appearances. Despite his charming looks and popularity, he is portrayed as not so intelligent guy who is oblivious and unattentive to his sisters. The guy doesn't even remember Susan and Mary despite meeting them several times throughout the show. While Jill doesn't play a central role in the show, his presence serves as a comedic element and adds to the sisters' personality. Their crush on Jill adds a humorous touch to the dynamic between the siblings and occasionally leads to funny situations as they try to win his affection. Bling Bling Boy is depicted as a wealthy, spoiled, and eccentric character with a strong desire for wealth and material possessions. He often flaunts his luxurious lifestyle and flashy jewelry, hence his nickname. Bling Bling Boy has a crush on Susan Test and frequently tries to win her over, but his attempts are mostly unsuccessful. Despite his obsession with wealth, Bling Bling Boy is not portrayed as a particularly intelligent character. He often relies on gadgets and inventions created by his henchmen to try and defeat Johnny or impress Susan. However, his plans tend to backfire or go awry, leading to comedic moments in the show. Bling Bling Boy's interactions with Johnny Test are often filled with rivalry and competition. He sees Johnny as a rival for Susan's affection and constantly tries to prove himself superior. Their encounters frequently result in humorous clashes and chaotic situations. However, deep down, he feels insecure about his appearance and uses his wealth to cope with his misery. Overall, Bling Bling Boy brings a mix of humor, rivalry, and over-the-top antics to the show. His obsession with wealth and his attempts to win Susan's heart create entertaining storylines and add a unique dynamic to the series. And here are Hugh and Leela, the parents of Johnny, Susan, and Mary. Hugh is a stay-at-home dad who is obsessed with cooking and cleaning the house, but all he really ever cooks is meatloaf and even chooses to ignore the obvious fact that no one ever likes it. Additionally, he has completely banned all experiments of Susan and Mary in the house, which is why the girls always have to hide their inventions. He is more appreciative of Susan and Mary due to their high intelligence and often admonishes Johnny for his troublemaking habits. Despite his mildly selfish character, he cares deeply about the kids and shares moments of affection throughout the show. Leela Test, Johnny's mother, is more level-headed and often takes on the role of the voice of reason in the family. She is a kind and nurturing figure who keeps the household running smoothly. Leela cares deeply for her children and is always there to offer guidance and support. She balances out Hugh's quirks with her practicality and caring nature. Together, Hugh and Leela Test create a warm and loving home environment for their children. While they may not always fully understand the wild experiments and adventures Johnny and Susan and Mary embark on, they provide a stable and supportive foundation for their kids to explore and grow. Although Johnny's parents may not have as prominent a role as some of the other characters in the show, their presence is important in portraying a typical family dynamic and adding a sense of stability and parental guidance to the series. So these were some of the major characters in the show. Now let's talk about the plot. The basic plot of the show revolves around the adventures and misadventures of Johnny Test, his family and friends, and their interactions with each other. The series follows Johnny as he tests out his sister's wild and imaginative inventions, which often lead to unexpected and chaotic situations. Johnny's sisters are constantly coming up with new gadgets and experiments, and they often enlist Johnny's help as their guinea pig to test their new creations. These inventions can range from time machines to superpowers, and they always bring excitement and unpredictability to the show. Speaking of superpowers, the sisters even turn Johnny and Dookie into these superheroes called Johnny X and Super Dookie that fly around and save the city from various threats. Throughout the series, Johnny learns valuable lessons about friendship, family, and the consequences of his actions, while also having lots of fun along the way. The show combines elements of science fiction, comedy, and action as Johnny finds himself in wacky situations and faces entertaining obstacles. In short, the show showcases their experiments, inventions, and the humorous and exciting situations that arise as a result. Despite being a very popular show among kids, Johnny Test is often perceived in a negative light. In fact, it got so bad that people actually started hating the show, which led to its ultimate downfall. So here's the deal with what's supposed to be the downfall of the Johnny Test. Some people had issues with the show because it started feeling repetitive. Like, they felt they were watching the same stuff over and over again with nothing new to offer. And that is what happens when there's no actual plot in the show. Almost every episode was one-off. A one-off that had the same exact storyline repeating over dozens of episodes. Although there were some really cool ideas and episodes in the show, they were never expanded and just got reused again and again until they failed. It was like telling the same joke again and again, expecting people to laugh each time. The critics also said that the characters were kind of flat and didn't really grow or change throughout the series. It's like they were stuck in one mode all the time. You can pick the very first episode of the show and pick one of the last ones, and you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. The concept of character development was pretty much absent throughout the entire show, and because of that, it just got boring for many people. Another thing people complained about was the constant uses of jokes and gags. They felt it got a bit too much, like they were bombarded with forced humor all the time. Pick any random episode of the show and you will immediately notice the excessive use of ding or whiplash sound effects thrown randomly all across the episode. In fact, the sound effects were used so much that sometimes I couldn't even hear the dialogue. I wouldn't recommend this, but if you personally want to see how poor the quality of the show got, I would suggest you watch the episode named Johnny's 100th episode, and you will know what I mean. Another major issue with the show was that the animation quality started to dip as the show went on. It wasn't as visually appealing as it used to be, and this was mostly due to a lack of spirit by the creators, who themselves were worn out and uninterested in continuing the show. Lastly, humor and storylines were more suited for a younger audience, and they didn't resonate with older viewers or adults. Other similar shows always have a deeper meaning to them. Shows like Dexter's Lab or Phineas and Ferb had a similar setting, but they were much deeper and appealed to a wider audience with actually interesting storylines. Take Phineas and Ferb for example. It had a backstory of all its major characters, and the attention to detail was very impressive. There's a character in the show named Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz, who at the surface was a joke character, but had such a miserable backstory that was told throughout the show. This not only kept the audience interested, but also gave a brand new look to a character. People started loving him the more they learned about his past. And this is something that Johnny Test really needed. Personally speaking, none of its characters were any special, just some generic teenagers who are as good as a side character role. It felt like the creators themselves have stopped caring about the show, and that was true for the most part. This led to a lack of fresh ideas and poor animations alongside forced humor, and eventually, the show was concluded in December 2014 after airing for 9 years and 6 seasons. Even to this day, people perceive it as a bad show, and the ratings support this claim. However, that wasn't the end for our little troublemaker. In 2021, Netflix decided to pick up the show, and given its history of remakes, people weren't too happy about it. But to everyone's surprise, the Netflix revival was much better than any of us had anticipated. At first glance, the show had much better animation and actually decent sound design. The constant bombarding of annoying sound effects was still there, but this time it was actually a lot less and much more bearable. This time around, the episodes not only appealed to kids, but also to a much wider audience with references that expanded the world of the show. For example, the first episode of the show is literally called Johnny's Battle Royale, where a bunch of characters are put in a real-life battle royale, which was a popular trend back then. There's another episode that features a game called Tinymon Go, which is a reference to the infamous Pokemon Go. Again, really popular at that time. Although most of these references will not age well after a couple of years, it's still nice to see the world of Johnny Test expanding its domain. There's also this one episode titled Johnny Unboxed, where Johnny and Dookie sneak into an Enormazon warehouse. They have to face off against the guy named Jorf Muskerberg. For people who didn't get the reference, Enormazon is Amazon and Jorf Muskerberg is a mix of Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg. Pretty cool stuff. However, one issue people had with the show was how it was listed as a separate show from the original, which was mainly on Netflix. Now any kid could come across the remake and be immediately overwhelmed if they haven't watched the show. Personally, I felt like a proper reintroduction was necessary so people would know what they're watching and who the characters are. Anyways, for people who had already watched the original show, this premiere episode was really exciting and fun, all credit to the cast that worked on it. The show aired another 2 seasons and received a much better response from the viewers. Not only did it keep the original good qualities of the show, but also added a lot more depth into the world of Johnny Test. As I mentioned earlier, the sound design was improved a lot, and thank God that the viewers didn't have to hear a ding or a whiplash every other second. In fact, in the episode of Silence of Johnny, an evil librarian uses a device to take away Johnny's voice, leaving him with only whip sound effects when he moves his arms. She then says, "We've had enough of those sounds too," and takes away the sound effects as well. This was a way for the show to mock its own previous art style and apologize to its viewers for constantly overusing these sound effects. Not to get sidetracked here, but remember Sonic the movie and how it had the monstrosity of a design that people complained about? The director scrapped the movie close to finishing and restarted the whole project with a brand new character design, which earned them the respect of millions of people. Things like these make it feel like the creators actually care about the viewers, which is a major step in the right direction to retain the audience. Anyways, back to Johnny Test. Each episode was unique enough to not have the same repeating storyline as the original show, and we even get to see some new characters that were fun and interesting. For once, Netflix did justice to a show which was once very close to my heart as a kid. Looking back, the impact of the show Johnny Test remains undeniable, not only on myself but on many kids of the time. Despite being considered a below-average show by many, that release of a Netflix reboot brought about a sense of delight and nostalgia to the 2 remaining fans of the show. Also, it is important to acknowledge that Johnny Test wasn't exactly a groundbreaking concept, with Dexter's Lab having paved the way before it, and let's be real, I wasn't the only one who noticed the similarities. That being said, the show had untapped potential that unfortunately went unexplored, possibly due to a lack of interest or motivation from the creators, resulting in its eventual decline. At this point, it's fair to say that Johnny Test falls somewhere in the middle, neither a standout nor a complete disappointment. It has its merits and flaws, and its legacy remains a mixed bag of memories for those who grew up watching it. So, there you have it. That was an honest critique of the show Johnny Test. What do you think? Did we get it right? Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more awesome content like this on your feed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace!